Welcome to Friends in the Corner podcast, a new podcast experience here in the Bluegrass State of Kentucky. And I'm your host, Dan Pauly, and welcome in to episode number 4 of FITC. And I just want to again take this week to say thank you to everyone. Thank you to everyone that's taken the opportunity to listen to our podcast over the last month. As I shared in our YTE last week, we have had over 200 people listen to our podcast in the month of August. Over 200 in our very first month. I can't believe that. It's unbelievable to me, and I just want to say thank you so much for everyone that's taken the opportunity to listen to our podcast over this month. It's really been encouraging me just to see the positive feedback we've gotten back, some of the great responses you guys have given us to our interviews that we've had so far, and we hope to continue that same trend as we keep pushing more and more into the end of 2018. We guys hope you really enjoy what we still have lined up for the rest of our time here. And today's interview, we hope, is no different as we welcome in Sal Sanchez from A Cup of Commonwealth and Chocolate Holler here to talk to us a little today about his jump into the coffee game. He talks to us about his shop, A Cup of Commonwealth, his other shop, Chocolate Holler, some of the changes that have been going on to the shops around him, and we just talk about the growth of the coffee industry here in the Lexington area. So I hope you enjoy that interview with just a really good guy that I've gotten to know over these last 5 years. And for those of you who have never been to either A Cup of Commonwealth or Chocolate Holler, you guys are in for a treat if you guys can ever make your way down there. Not only do they have great coffee and great chocolate at both locations, but you're going to get the sense of community from either one of those stores when you first walk in. You seriously feel like you're the most important person whenever you go into the stores, and it's what's kept me going to a Cup of Commonwealth for the last 5 years since their opening year about 5 years ago. So really check them out. You can find A Cup of Commonwealth down on East Avenue, 105 East Avenue, across from Thoroughbred Park. You can find Chocolate Holler on Old Vine Street at 400 Old Vine Street next to Walker's down that way. So be sure to stop out in one of those stores and let them know Dan Pauly sent you. And trust me, they don't pay me to say this. I'm just a supporter of good work. So be sure to check them out. And we'll be jumping into that interview very soon. But before we get in there, I want to ask you guys this. You know we're on Stitcher. You know we're on iTunes. You know we're on Soundcloud. And you know we're on Google Play. But how many of you guys knew that we were actually on YouTube as well? Yes, Friends in the Corner does have a YouTube page where we put all of our podcast episodes along with some special exclusive YouTube clips that we also put up there as well. Last week we launched our very first YouTube exclusive YTE where you got to hear some of the extra audio that you didn't get to hear from the interviews with Max Godby, Adam Banks, or DJ Otis Badass. So if you haven't already, be sure to go on to youtube.com and find Friends in the Corner. That way you can find us in the search bar just by searching for Friends in the Corner podcast up there. You'll find our official page, FICT Podcast. So be sure to like and subscribe and then listen to all future episodes that way, or listen to our YouTube exclusives at the end of each month as well. I'm sure you guys will enjoy some of the content that we've had up that way. So be sure to listen to us on YouTube or iTunes or Stitcher or Google Play or SoundCloud, or hopefully one of these days, maybe Spotify, We're hoping to get up there one day. We'll see how it goes. Things have been going up and up from this point forward, so only time will tell. But yes, be sure to listen to Friends in the Corner at any time. And also be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at FICC Podcast. That's FITC Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And be sure to always email the show at friendsinthecorner@gmail.com. That's friendsinthecorner, all together lowercase, at gmail.com. Well, guys, without further ado, I'm not going to take any more time here. Let's introduce our guest, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Sal Sanchez. All right. Well, we're here now with Mr. Sal Sanchez, the founder, owner, godfather of A Cup of Commonwealth, the man with the most infectious laugh I've ever heard in my entire life. How you doing today, Sal?
I'm good. I appreciate that. Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Well, hey, when I was getting this podcast started, I had this list of about 10 names that I wanted to interview for this podcast, and Cup of Commonwealth and you were one of them. So thank you so much just for sitting down and being able to do this interview with me today.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really kind. So.
All right. Well, and I'm hoping we can talk a little bit about Cup. Enjoy a good cup of coffee. Mine's somewhere around here. Get behind the man that's behind the headband, and we'll talk about that. But we'll jump into the interview here real quickly. But there's only one way to start this interview off, since this is Cup of Commonwealth, right? Mm-hmm. With a high five. So if you don't mind, and if you don't understand what the high five means to A Cup of Commonwealth, you need to come down here and get yourself a cup of coffee and a high five, because they will definitely do it for you. So
there's some really loud, impactful ones. That was a good one.
Yes. I had to make sure that the audio was picked up on it there. So. But gosh, man, you guys have been around now 5 years, and I still remember the first day I came to Cup, and the first thing I just felt when I came in was this welcoming atmosphere. Showed up to the front, Basil and Chris, who are no longer with the shop, but still their spirits are here, welcomed me in, showed me the pay it forward wall. So it's just been, what's it been like to be like 5 years into this project, into this baby you've had?
There are days where it feels like it went by really fast, and days that it seems like it hasn't gone by that fast. So our 5-year anniversary was July 1st, and that was kind of a really cool day to kind of think about it and realize that there's a lot of milestones that kind of pop up and you don't realize they're going to stick in your head. Mm-hmm. But when you like start reflecting, you realize, oh, that was such an important day. I have no idea why. I don't know why it was. It's tattooed in my head. And then there are days that are tattooed in my head that make complete sense. Like the day after we got broken into, that day I remember really, really well. The day that we opened, I remember that really, really well. All of our anniversary parties always stick in my head. So it's a lot of just fun memories and realizing how fast time can fly. So hopefully I'm learning to appreciate the moments a little bit more.
And you guys have had 5 years of great moments around here, and I'm hopeful we'll get to touch on some of those here down the road here. But before A Cup of Commonwealth, before the brick building, before Lexington, Sal Sanchez was still around. So if you don't mind, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what brought you here to Lexington, starting Cup and all that stuff?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Michigan. My dad was born in Mexico. My mom's parents were born in Mexico, and they ended up in Michigan. And they ended up having 6 kids, so I'm one of 6. And
where do you fall in line?
I'm number 4 of the 6.
Oh,
yeah,
boy. Okay.
Yeah. I'm the oldest of the youngest, and I think big families usually understand what that means. And kind of growing up, it was there was always coffee around, which is something that makes a lot of sense now looking back on it. But anytime either one of my grandmothers came over, we always had a ton of pots of coffee just going, and they would sit around and we would be at the dining room table or running around the dining room table when we were younger. And I always kind of noticed that with coffee and community. Then when I was looking for my first job, I met this girl and I really wanted to date her, and she was working at this barbecue shop / coffee shop. So
that's quite a combo right there.
Yeah, and it didn't last. So I ended up working there, and that's kind of how I got tied into coffee. And then I just started working for their coffee companies. Worked at a couple other places, but coffee was something that just kind of always stuck with me, and worked my way up at different places. I worked at Water Street, which is our flagship roaster here at Cup. I worked there for several years.
Where's Water Street at?
Out of Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Okay.
So when I went to college there, that's where they were opening up their second location, and that's kind of when I came on board there and managed there for a bit, and I did some of their training before I left. And then I went to Hastings Entertainment and started there as an assistant to a director, and kind of worked my way up and eventually became the director of customer service and the coffee shops there. And then I moved to Whole Foods, and I became one of their regional manager, coffee coordinators out of Austin, and I lived there for about a year. Through all that, I was traveling a lot with the job, so I ran into Lexington quite a bit, and I got to watch the city grow from roughly 2007 to 2000. I mean, even now. And about 2012, I noticed a lot of things were kind of changing and bubbling. So it was a city that was on the top of my list. Chris and I were really good friends at the time, and we were talking, and we're still really good friends. We were really good friends. And we were talking about starting the business, and he was a big proponent of Lexington. So that also kind of helped just push the idea over the fence and say, okay, we're going to do it in Lexington, and then opened up shop, and there it is.
Just moved on down here. So
yeah,
awesome.
exactly.
So you said you had a partner when you came in here,
Mm-hmm.
and where's the partner now?
Yeah, so Chris, he's co-founder, and he is actually at West 6 now.
Oh, okay.
So
friends of the podcast.
Yeah, exactly. So if you ever see him there, he's the guy that helped start this up, and he was a big proponent of, the high fives. And when we first started, we were trying to come up with a name and a mission statement, and I came up with a mission statement. He came up with a name. So if you love A Cup of Commonwealth, that's that name came from his head, a brainchild of his, and he stayed around for roughly almost the first year, and then we kind of parted ways. And he has loved Lexington and stayed around, and I think he's been a very good community ambassador. And most people around Lexington probably know who he is.
Yeah,
And,
the culture he brought to Cup, you can get that at West 6 now.
Yeah.
So serve you a beer with a smile and a high five.
Yeah.
So. Absolutely. Well, cool. Well, what was your first thought about the coffee community in Lexington when you guys first showed up and you guys first started setting shop up here?
Yeah, the year before we moved here, I was spending a lot of time studying the different cities, and so I was looking up a ton of information
What
about
were
Lexington.
the other cities that were in consideration?
We looked at Chattanooga, Detroit, Louisville, Chicago.
Thank God you didn't go to Louisville.
Yeah, it worked out well here in Lexington. But a ton of different cities, and I think the last three ended up being Lexington, Detroit, and Chattanooga. And we noticed a lot of things about Lexington. So one, there's a kind of a growing art and culture scene here. The coffee scene wasn't that big. Back then, it was really 3rd Street stuff, coffee times. Common Grounds was well known. It's been around a bit,
I was gonna say, when I was in college, Coffeo was usually my go-to.
Yeah, and I think when we wrote the business plan, it was the three I was just mentioning, Coffea, and I think we listed Starbucks because it was here in town. And we saw that there was definitely a need, and we wanted to kind of help bring more education to the coffee scene, do something a little bit different, a little bit more hodgepodgey, like leaving the corporate world. I definitely wanted to almost have this like feeling of not corporate. Like it really needed to be very driven by the community and very much a mom and pop kind of coffee shop. So there was a lot of research into Lexington, and but there's also a lot of just feelings. I mean, it felt good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, when we pulled up and saw this building, we were like, this is going to be Cup. So,
and what a location you've got, not just on the outskirts of downtown here next to a park. There's a lot of development going on in this area, and we're going to get to that here momentarily. But how did you guys finalize on this area? Was there any other parts of Lexington you guys were looking to plan at, or?
We looked a lot around the downtown area. We also looked at neighboring towns. So we looked at Richmond and a couple other places like that. We ended up finding this place. I remember flying in one weekend and looked through the window and saw it, and I was like, oh, this place reminds me of the original Water Street, which is a gas station on 2 main roads kind of diverge out, and in the middle is where Water Street stands. So it was really familiar. It felt really good. And looking at the park, that Saturday morning, we came and looked at these streets and saw how busy they were. And so it made sense. And the nice thing is, since we weren't from Lexington, we didn't have any like preconceived notions about it, where after we opened, a lot of people came in and said, this place is cursed. No one ever makes it here. So fortunately, we didn't have all those thoughts. We just thought, this is a great spot. It feels good. It feels right. And there it is.
You know what was in this building beforehand?
Happy Falafel was right before us, and
Okay.
there's been pawn shops. There's a little deli here. There's been coffee shops here in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So it's got a pretty storied history, and I'm glad we just didn't assume it was cursed.
Right. And now you've just made it a footprint of your own here in town with the nice blue door out front there. So you were the original blue door, I'm assuming, in town before the smokehouse showed up here.
I actually think they looked at this spot too. I think we
did
might have
they?
just beat them to the punch, honestly.
Well, what do you know? Well, you kind of highlighted one thing I would definitely want to talk about here. That's the biggest proponent, or some of the biggest things when you walk into the stores. You notice a lot of stuff. You'll notice the customer service. You notice your staff, which are just fantastic. Can't say a bad word about any of them, except Evan Drysdale. I could probably say a few bad words about him. but the pay it forward wall. But the first things I notice when you go in is your mission statement is just plastered on the wall. It's here at Cup. It's over at Chocolate Holler. So can you tell us a little bit about your mission statement and how you guys came up with that?
Yeah, I noticed in a lot of coffee shops and just other businesses and people that I know, the three pillars that seemed to be very common was a focus on community, a focus on service, and a focus on just creating culture. So that was important to me. And trying to come up with a mission statement, it ended up being this long paragraph, and like so many businesses have, and then they never look back at it. They never pay attention to it. We wanted it to be tangible. So we needed three very, very powerful verbs and three things that people connected with. So that's where we came up with embrace community, serve others, create culture. And what we've done is a little bit different that I think from other companies is all of our decisions are based off of that. Anything we do comes back to that. We're hiring people. We think, okay, does this make sense? Do they fit the mission? Can it tie into their own hearts? And it's made, to me, the business a lot easier to manage. I think that I would get frustrated working for places when they had a mission statement and then they would change it when they were focused on like profitability or they were thinking about their shareholders.
Or they woke up that day.
And so we didn't want to do that. We want everything to be based off that mission. And so it does get tough. There are times that we have to make tough decisions that we maybe wouldn't if we didn't have that mission statement, where we've had opportunities to grow and we decided, no, we're not going to do that because it doesn't fit, who we are. Or when we try to partner up with different nonprofits, we try to tie them into our mission. Like, does this make sense for us? And so we keep somewhat laser focused on that. For the mission, extremely laser focused, but there's elements of it that we kind of were able to wiggle a bit. And I think what I've learned from it is, and I heard it from a mentor, which now resonates so much more, is that if your core is strong and you're not willing to bend your core, it's much easier to be malleable in other areas of your life. So if our mission is strong, we're able to make really good decisions and do, I think, really good things in the community, but we can be playful on other things where it doesn't matter that our walls aren't perfect. It doesn't matter that we have mismatched furniture. It doesn't matter that this pay it forward wall is getting crazy and flowing over the bathrooms. That part I think is really fun, and that evolution is such a cool thing for customers to be a part of and to see.
It's definitely different, and you notice that when you walk in a good way. But I remember, like I said, I remember my first day I walked in here. I was like, "What the hell, third world country did I just walk into here?" But it was awesome, man.
Yeah.
And you highlighted one of the big things that you've had. One of the big things that you've put in place to kind of embrace that community and grow that community has been the pay it forward wall. And the first time I ever saw a pay it forward wall was here at Cup of Commonwealth. And if you come in, you'll see literally by the bathrooms hundreds and hundreds of coffee sleeves just listed for every single person almost in Lexington I can find. I saw one up there for Cal for like 2 years. I don't know if you ever came in and claimed it. But I mean, they're up there for anyone, and you can find even a couple. I know I've made a fool of myself just to get some free coffee here, both here and at Chocolate. But it just seems like it's grown so much because now you can go around town and find pay it forward walls all over the place. I was at a brewery in Florida and I found a pay it forward wall.
Oh, that's cool.
There. And Cherry Seed, another one of my favorite coffee shops here in town, they started a pay it forward wall. So can you tell me a little bit about how you guys got started with that and what you think's been the significant impact of it? Yeah,
so I mean, it's been around for a year. I mean,
before you guys?
Yeah, way before us. I mean, there's so many other coffee companies that do it. Yeah. So many coffee companies that have done it. And, you hear the stories about Starbucks or people going through the drive-thru. And a lot of people believe it started in Europe with the whole suspended coffee. And you're making sure that there's coffee for someone who maybe is in need. So that idea was always really interesting to me. Right before I came here and I was at Whole Foods, we were opening up, a bunch of stores. I mean, Whole Foods was in a really big growth stage. And one of the rules that we had as coordinator teams was anytime when you open up a new store, you had to do something innovative in your department. And the department that coffee was a part of was beer, wine, cheese, coffee, tea, chocolate. It was just like kind of the specialty area of Whole Foods. So we were opening up a bar in Bee Cave, Texas, which is just outside of Austin. And we decided to do something called Buy Your Buddy a Beer. And it was really cool. It started taking off, and other Whole Foods started picking up on it, and it was the pay it forward concept. And I really, really appreciated it, watching it. And I thought to myself, okay, when we open this coffee shop, there has to be some element to it. And I didn't want to come up with like a name that was too difficult. So pay it forward made a lot of sense, and people understand that.
You were just drinking a cocoa porter one day, and you're like, "That's a great name." Get you in a little trouble with West.
Yeah. No, and so as we wrote the business plan, it was a small line. It was, okay, we're gonna have this pay it forward board. It'll be right next to the register, and people can buy drinks for each other. And we put up on the butcher paper. And the interesting thing that I think a lot of people don't know about the pay it forward board was that when we were starting, we wanted to have additional revenue in the bank so that we knew that we'd be okay. So we basically asked all of our friends and family that were around the country that we have met over the years that, hey, if you buy a t-shirt from us, the only thing we can give you is a free drink. So if you ever come to visit us, you'll have a free drink from us. And then a lot of them decided, well, I can get my own drink, or it's going to be forever before I get down there. So why don't you just give the drink to someone else? So all the original pay it forwards were people that bought the original t-shirts for Cup. So if you ever get a drink in the first like 3 weeks of Cup, more than likely one of my family members or friends, or one of Chris's family members or friends bought that coffee for you.
Awesome. And I did.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that was a really cool thing. And then from there, I mean, the people here in Lexington just loved it. So they just kept buying more drinks. And I mean, it got out of hand. We weren't expecting it to get that big, and it just got larger and larger. And then we had a lot of coffee shops or other places calling us and saying, hey, can we steal this idea? It's like, it's not our idea. Like, feel free, like do whatever you want with it. And so it's been really cool to see, specifically in Lexington, a lot of places pop up with pay it forwards, and it's just fun and contagious.
It's a great way to like really grow community. I feel like, and you kind of just, it's an easy way to do something good for someone. $5, not that much of investment, but does make an impact on someone to say, I can get a free coffee, or I can get a free ice cream at Crank and Boone, or I can get a free beer at ABC Brewery. So I think that's awesome. And then now you guys kind of, I mean, you may not have came up with it, but God, you got it started here in Lexington.
And it's crazy to see. I mean, you see the difference between Cup's pay it forward wall, where we have 2 walls just full of all these free drinks, and then Chocolate Holler is still young and coming up, and I think there might be like 50 drinks on it at any given time. But Cup, I think at some point there's like 1,000 to 2,000 drinks up there that are just waiting to be redeemed.
Can you tell us a little bit about the break-in that happened a couple years ago? What exactly happened, and what was the response from that?
Yeah, that is funny because it's I realized I was getting older when that happened, because it's one of the first things that I was like getting kind of emotional about. And I never really cried in my 20s. In my 30s, I've noticed that it's very easy for me to get teary-eyed. And when that happened, it was strange because it was, we were open for 5 months. We're trying to kind of keep it going and running. And it's still a young business, so bad things can happen. So it was a Sunday night, early Monday morning. Somebody broke in, and at the time we were just like, we didn't have great cash management. We're just kind of like, nothing's ever going to happen. We're fine. So we had money in the drawer, and they took all the money in there. Fortunately, for whatever reason, and I don't know why this happened, but at like 4 or 5 that day, I just thought to myself, there's a lot of money at the shop right now. I'm going to take that, and I'll just deposit it Monday morning. So they ended up only taking like $300, which is much better than what they could have taken, because it was all the money from the weekend. So they broke in, and they took off running up to Short Street. So there was like dollar bills all over the street. And
just a trail.
Yeah. And Chris and his girlfriend actually got here first, and a customer had realized that we got broken into. So she came down and helped board up the window and brought like a big bag of gummy bears to share. And then we watched Elf like until the morning. And then
just here in the shop.
Yeah. And then the next morning, because we had just like, it was just a board up window, so we just kind of wait. We couldn't leave it. And then the next morning, the opening barista came in, and she was like, oh, this is going to be terrible. I'm like, well, here's what we're going to do. We're just going to serve like we normally do and see what happens. And we told her that you don't have any cash. So if anyone pays with cash, just give them their drink for free, because they can't get any money. If they pay with card, great, whatever. So Chris and I laughed, and both of us were like, we're just going to at least like go home, shower, and we'll come back. And on my way back, she had called me. She goes, you'll never believe what's happening. I was like, okay, this is crazy. Like, this is going to keep happening all day. But she said the first customer came in, he had a $20 bill, and she had said, oh, we're just giving the drink for free. Like, we got broken into, we can't do anything about it. And he said, no, keep the money. And she's like, no, we can't. He's like, no, keep the money. So that first one started with 20. The next guy had a $10 bill. So we started like with $30 right off the bat. And then the next person came in and he had his card, but he bought a pay it forward for the next person because he realized that was part of, who we were. And then just kind of kept happening throughout the day. So people just started bringing food and envelopes full of like cash. The company for that ended up repairing our window came down really quick and got that all figured out for us. Somebody like didn't have a lot of money, so he brought a piggy bank, and he's like, I don't have any money, but I have a piggy bank to start saving money for you guys for your window. And a security system, a company here in town, Lava, they were great. And got us a security system, and we had one, but it didn't work really well, obviously. And yeah, it's just like seeing the kindness, and it almost felt like in a strange way, somebody had passed away and people were coming into the living room and just like sharing stories and having meals. We had a ton of food. And so all day people were just coming in and they were talking about Cup in the last 5 months, which is crazy because it seemed as if the way they were acting, the way they were talking to us, that we had been open for years. Yeah. And they just brought so much kindness and love. And that was a cool thing to kind of feel and see. And I think that part was, and it always has been really interesting to me. So now, what we've done is every year on Break-In Day, we just do free drinks for the city. Kind of our way of giving back, because I mean, it ended up being at the time our biggest day in our history, because we're still small, we're still trying to grow, and then everybody came in and bought stuff to kind of get us back on our feet. So it's a strange holiday. We call it Break-In Day, and it's just like our way of kind of giving back to the community. So,
but yeah, you kind of mentioned Chocolate Holler, and over 5 years, you talked about all these different, places you've gone with the company, and you guys have even gone beyond just the original 4 walls that you guys had up here. Changes have been to this building, Cup. We're sitting in a room that didn't exist 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Chocolate Holler.
Yep.
You guys, Magic Beans.
Yep.
You guys had a dip in the restaurant game downtown for a short stint. So tell me about some of those adventures you guys had going out that way.
Yeah, Chocolate Holler was, well, I guess I'll go in chronological order. So Magic Beans, at the time I was in Denver, and Skylar, who was the majority owner of Magic Beans at the time, reached out to me and had said that, he was kind of getting ready to wrap up Magic Beans, at least for him, and he wanted to move, and he really wanted someone to carry on Magic Beans.
How long was he doing it for?
Oh, I think that the most current rendition was they started back up in 2012. But Keith, his business partner, years ago, maybe almost 20 years ago now, actually opened a coffee shop here called Magic Beans. And eventually he closed it. And then years later, they started the roasters. So there is a history of Magic Beans here in Lexington for a long time. And so Skylar was looking for someone to kind of carry it on, and I wanted to keep the same, mission of Magic Beans. And we were in the market looking for a roaster, in no rush. I mean, our goal was, in the first 5 years we're open, was to eventually have a roaster. So this was 2 or 3 years into it, kind of unexpected. And I thought, well, this is a good chance to dive into it and not wait too long. I might not get another chance like this. So we decided to move forward with it, and kind of jumped into it. So I had some previous experience with roasting and wholesale, but not a lot. So that made me move back to Lexington, and with Joe and Zach, the 3 of us kind of tackled it. And anytime we get a new project, there's always like a small group of us that will just attack the project. So 3 of us attacked Magic Beans, kind of got that under our belt, and that helped us kind of grow, and it also connected us with different customers. And it's, in a way, it teaches us how to give the service that we give at the coffee shop in a different way, because wholesale customers are a little bit different. And how do you give service when you don't see them every day, and you're not serving them a cup of coffee every single day? And that's been really fun and challenging for us to learn. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. So what changes did you guys make to Magic Beans from where it was with those guys to
Yeah.
under your management?
At the beginning, we didn't change much. I mean, we were really careful on that because a lot of the customers loved Magic Beans. They didn't want to see a change. So we had to kind of wait it out and ask them and get their feedback. And a lot of them said that things that they liked about Magic Beans was the specific coffees that Skylar would bring in. They liked the interactions they had with them at the farmer's market. So some of those things we had to be really, really careful and not to change. Then as we got more feedback, they were like, yeah, we'd be okay if you changed the logo a little bit. We'd be okay if, you tried this or you got into these coffee shops. And so then we started reaching out to other companies like, hey, do you want our coffee? And it kind of grew from there. We added in probably more structure, and not to say that it was because Skylar and Keith didn't want that. It was, they were owners that ran it, and it was also a side, and both of them were doing like 5 different things. Like they were just these madmen that were able to like also run this business. So in our case, we decided to run it in a sense of now we have employees in there, and they're going to have hours and they're going to work at the shops. And so we started building in more structures and or structure and just different types of labels that applied more to us. And so I'd say the biggest thing was just in a sense, that corporate kind of organization, which is something I really appreciated that I took from Hastings and Whole Foods, is that there's the mom, pop, indie side of me, but so much of the organization and structure that comes with corporations has been so helpful for Cup, Holler, and Magic Beans, where we can easily get things in a row and make sure everybody kind of knows their duties. So I'd say that was the biggest thing that we did for Magic Beans. And then from there, we expanded Cup. So we had an opportunity. Our landlord came in and said, hey, Rest Care is moving out. If you guys want the space, you get first right. Mm-hmm. So we decided that we wanted to, and we expanded that, and we did it kind of slowly.
Just put a hole through the wall.
Yeah, that's yeah, we definitely did. But that's been nice. Like we haven't. It's fun because this part of the shop is so different. And the front part of the shop, when you walk into it, it feels like a living room. Like you're walking into someone's living room. Again, like the mismatched furniture, it's its own style. The community has done so much to make it what it is. This part, we were probably more hands-on and kind of what we wanted. And even then, I think that there's a strange feeling here. I feel like people come here to be, they want to be quiet or they want to study. On the other side of Cup, next to the register, people want to be loud and crazy and dancing and singing. So it's fun to kind of see those two cultures. And then from there, Chocolate Holler, and that was something that when from the beginning, as we grow, we never want to be too cookie cutter, and I've always been interested in the chocolate world. And when I was at Whole Foods, I had coffee and tea, but then they also said, well, you're in charge of spices and houseware and in-house roasting and chocolate. So I just started learning that business, and it was really interesting to me. And then seeing some of the Ghirardellis around the country, the Godivas, French Broad in Asheville, it made me enjoy that a bit, and I try to understand, like, how does that tie into the coffee world? And it does. There's a lot of similarities. Mm-hmm. So we kind of decided to go with it, and it was one of those, a lot of things fell into place at the right time. So we decided, I think, December 26th, and then we opened January 26th, which was a huge, crazy project.
Say, it felt like no time at all when you guys opened up that shop.
Yeah. It was nice because there was about 4 or 5 of us that were ready just to hit the ground running with it, so we were able to open it fast. Mm-hmm. And we'll never do that again. I mean, now as we open shops,
once is enough.
Yeah, we'll do it much slower, and now more, just more systems and normal ways to open a store. That one was just, as it was our second one, we knew we were taking a big risk. Mm-hmm. And any small business owner out there will say cash is king. It's important to have that. So we couldn't just let our spot sit there without bringing any revenue. So the sooner we could get it open and bring revenue in, it could start paying its own bills. And I think even just now, probably 2 or 3 months ago, it's actually paying its own bills, where Cup has just been the feeder for Holler for so long. Mm-hmm. So it's tough. I mean, that part was really important for us to get up and running. So.
And it's interesting. It's crazy because you go to Chocolate Holler, mm-hmm. It's a completely different atmosphere mm-hmm. from Cup.
Yep.
Did you guys design it that way? So like this is going to be significantly a different experience for customers that way than it is for Cup over here?
Absolutely. The things that stick are the mission statement. So community service and culture is important, whatever we do. but some of the things we can experiment with. And Chocolate Holler specifically was more of Alan's style and branding, and that was fun to kind of bring someone in and have them be able to even just have the freedom to play around with things. So all of us had like our different opinions, and we kind of stuck with those parameters, but Alan was one who spearheaded the branding more than anyone else.
And for the listeners at home, I know who Alan is, but
yeah.
who is Alan?
So Alan is with us, and he's a head of marketing and branding for us, and he started 2 years ago. He was one of the first customers of Cup 2, and when I moved back from Denver, we ended up just sitting down and talking and brainstorming and coming up with a bunch of ideas and became really good friends. And then at one point, I just thought to myself, well, it just makes more sense for him to be working with us and working alongside me. And that kind of happened, and he's been a valuable resource. I mean, it's just great to see his creativity and how he approaches everything.
Yeah, I went to college with Alan.
Mm-hmm.
Every time you saw him, he was just thinking of something new, creative to do. He was a DJ in college and stuff like that. So always had that creative outlet going for him. So good. I didn't know how much influence he had over there at Chocolate.
Yeah, a ton.
Well, awesome. So creative, organized over there.
Mm-hmm.
Scatterbrained over here.
Yeah.
That's what we're saying.
Yeah.
We got Sal, A Cup, and we got Alan, Chocolate. I love it, man.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding, but awesome, man. Well, and then if you don't mind me asking about it a little bit here, because there was another project you guys were in for a very short stint. Was Alfalfa, which is a small restaurant here in town.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that adventure and where things went with that?
So that Alfalfa is such a staple in the community, and you talk about a crazy history that any business here has. I mean, I think they've had at this point now 19, 20 owners over the course of 40 some years. And so many people have kind of put their touches and style to it, which has been really cool. For us, we were really excited about being a part of it. And I was decent friends with Jim Happ, and I still talk to him to this day, and he was the owner right before us. And we teamed up with Cameron Heathcote and kind of jumped into it. And then honestly, probably like after a month or so, it didn't feel right. And I don't think that's anyone's fault. It's just kind of, hey, this doesn't make much sense. And if you truly care about like the success of something, like an Alfalfa, then sometimes it just makes more sense to make sure that has the best opportunity to be successful. So we stepped away from it. And then Cameron's husband, jumped in, and he and Cameron kind of ran with it, and they were the next stewards. And then I think they just recently sold it to the owner of Lina's, and I think she's partnering with one of the owners of Cosmic Charlie's for it. So they're the next stewards. And I think that's something cool about Alfalfa is it finds a way, and it's done that year after year. And I think that part's really cool. And if you've ever been in there, I mean, some of the employees are just amazing, and you can see how much they care about Alfalfa and want us to succeed as well. So
well, and you were just mentioning a couple big companies that have all kind of like dipped and try to make sure Linus does stay afloat, like you guys. The Heathcotes, they're from I'm blocking on their name. Bourbon and Toulouse, Cosmic Charlie's, Linus's, and stuff like that. So even all these people in the community have the same kind of vibe. Like we want to try to build into this because it's part of our community. So I think that's awesome. Well, despite all that, you all have been very successful, and you guys have had a huge impact in the community here. So you were talking at the start of the podcast here just about what you saw opportunity-wise when you guys moved to Lexington. What about now, 5 years later? What do you think of what changes have you seen to the Lexington community, in both just the community itself or in the coffee industry? Because a lot more shops have opened up here since you guys got started.
Yeah, I think I guess I'll start with coffee, then I'll go with Lexington as a whole. It's been so fun to watch. I mean, you've had so many cool coffee shops pop up, and I think that's important for any community, specific to the coffee industry. I think it's really important to have different coffee shops to choose from and to go to. So if you want loud and crazy and wild, I think Cup is a great spot for people to go. I think Chocolate Holler has its own like study style, beautiful tables, and that was something Alan made. Daily Offerings, same way, beautiful just spot, and you walk into it and you can see the style and the care that was put into it. I think they always do a great job with just the craftsmanship of their drinks. Cafe is another one, and they have a really good tie to Synergos, and so they're really involved and they're always helpful and kind of making sure that all their staff is trained really solid. Coffee Times and Third Street, I always think of like Terry and Pat as like the grandmothers of the coffee industry here in Lexington, because I mean, without them, a lot of these other mom and pops won't be around. And you can go and see those cool styles. I mean, Pat's so involved in the community and making sure that people like know what's out there. Unlearn Fear and Hate. She's a huge advocate of them and it's been helpful to promote them. And now you have Lucy Brown with alcohol, which is great. And I think those are always fun, like coffee cocktails. And the staff is always eager to like kind of tell you about the new things they're working on, which is really exciting. So in general, I just think that that's always great for any city. I mean, watching Chicago or Denver or Seattle, you see that too. There at some point, the coffee community had to grow, and so all these other people had to be there. And competition is really healthy and it's really good. And I think that part people forget all the time. And I personally like really appreciate it. I think one thing I learned at Water Street from the owner there is he didn't spend a lot of time paying attention to competition. He was excited for them to be open, but he knew like, hey, if I'm doing what I'm doing right, then the customers that want to be here will be here, and then I can be helpful to them. You know, we spent so much time at Water Street going to other coffee shops and helping them work on their equipment, or talking to the baristas and helping them like improve their skill sets, and that's something hopefully we're doing here. And we're not always great at it. I mean, I think sometimes, we probably maybe think too much about it, and every now and then it's just like a good reminder, like, hey guys, like don't worry about what someone else is doing, let's just focus on us and we'll make it work. So yeah, I'm a huge proponent of more growth. I think that's this city is 300,000 people. There's plenty of room for coffee shops.
And yeah, you guys have been a big, I want cheerleaders the bad word to say, I'm listing the word right now, but big encourager for other shops there. I know I've seen on your social media posts when you guys are closed, you're like, hey, we're closed today, but here are 5 or 6 different other shops you can go to and stuff like that. So I think that's kind of something you just don't see in a business industry that often.
And I think if you see, all of the owners and all the baristas from other coffee shops are the same way. I don't think this is common in a lot of cities. I think we've done a really good job of being focused on each other and helping each other out. And I don't think we're always perfect at, like, you can never be, but I think we're always trying to do well by one another and treat each other well. And then Lexington as a whole, that has been really fun to watch from 2012 to now. And obviously I didn't see before then as well as people that lived here, but you just watch all the businesses, all the restaurant owners, people that care. We talked about Alfalfa, but like you see like the Heathcotes jumping in there where they didn't have to do that. They could have just focused on B&T and CCI, but instead they were like, yeah, like we don't want to see this place close. We want to be a part of that. So I think there's some really cool things that Lexington tries to, embrace community. They really try to help each other out, and you see it with like when Sav had his horrible accident a few years ago, there was lines out the door to make sure that that restaurant would be okay. And that's such a cool thing about Lexington, and I would like to believe it's always been that way. I don't know that. I do know that in the 5 years I've been here, and the years that I've been watching Lexington, it seems like something really cool has happened, and a lot of businesses are opening. A lot of people care about each other, and are there for each other whenever they need it.
Lexington definitely has that very strong community vibe to it. You don't get that in a lot of cities. I grew up in Dayton, Ohio. Growing up around Cincinnati area, and you don't see that type of stuff like you do in Lexington, which I think is just awesome. So, and hopefully you guys continue to grow and continue to keep going and stuff like that. Do you have any goals you want Cup to still meet, or is there anything on your wish list you're still trying to do with your companies while you're still in Lexington?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Not that you're going anywhere.
No, we always have different plans. You can kind of see on our wall here in the office, we do every 6 months, we have strategic actions that each department head has their own 3 or 4 goals they're working on. And so we always have that listed, and we kind of hold each other accountable to that. And that feeds into our year goal, which feeds into our 3-year, which feeds into our 5-year. So we're always kind of looking toward that. For me, at some point in my life, I just thought I was going to open a coffee shop in the suburbs of Chicago, and that was going to be, I would close the shop when I wanted vacation, stay open when I didn't. And then this happened, and it just kind of kept growing. And now, I don't know, you get to a point where you realize, well, some of the people that are here want careers, so we just can't stop growing. Be like, oh well, too bad. You start feeling, and just like a family, you don't realize it's happening, and all of a sudden it starts growing beyond what you were expecting. And there's so much of that just natural growth. And next thing you know, you're like, well, we have to open another shop. I mean, it's got to be, we all can benefit from this. So we'll keep growing until we can't follow that mission. And that's kind of one of our biggest rules, is that maybe it's 5 stores and we suddenly feel like the mission's bending, then we stop growing. Maybe it's 2 stores and we stop growing. But that's kind of what we always look to and make sure that we don't break that mission. And that's something that is near and dear to my heart, is that I don't ever want to be a part of a company, including this one, that can't fulfill its mission. And once it breaks it, I just don't think that's a good thing.
Right. Well, absolutely. Well, and we hope to see you guys continue to grow and continue to work through different stuff that may come your way. And at the Cup Shop downtown here, there's a lot of stuff coming your way. As you can see out here, we've got construction cones and barrels and stuff. And so can you tell us a little bit about what's going on downtown outside your shop here? Yeah,
I'll try to explain it the best way I can. But basically, we have Town Branch Commons coming in, which is a transformational thing for the city, and I'm really excited to kind of see what happens with it, where they'll have a bike path and a walking path all the way through the city, connecting downtown to different areas like the Distillery District, where right in front of that there'll be a giant park, and they have the money for the path. They're working to get the money for the park. There's a lot of people behind this that I think are powerhouses in the community that kind of help things move. So with that, they have to do some construction here and there, and it's going to start at Charles Young Park off of Winchester, but I think it's the utilities they have to kind of worry about here, and so they're cutting up into the roads. They started on Main Street, which they should be done, I think, in 30 days, and they're also trying to do short at the same time to make it a fast process. On Eastern, they have to go, I think, 20 feet down, so they have to tear up the road. And I don't know, I'm hoping it's just a couple months. It might be longer. And so we know that will disrupt business. And what we're trying to do is let people know, hey, here's some spots you can park in. We have Chocolate Holler open if you really need a place to study, because, I mean, we can't lie about it. It's going to be loud. They're going to be working on things. It's going to be disruptive. We still want to make sure we get people their coffee the best way we can. So we're trying to figure out different ways of maybe doing delivery or maybe running coffee out to people. We are trying to get an alcohol license right now so we can maybe serve beer at night. And I think they are only doing the construction from 7 to 7. So we might extend our hours and then have beer from 7 to 9. And
get a coffee and then come back and get a beer after.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think it'll be some short pain that we'll deal with for a few months, but in the end, it's beneficial for everyone, including the city. So there's, no reason to complain.
Just gotta get through the pains a little bit.
Exactly.
So, everyone should still try to come out and get some coffee at Cup. Come help support them. If you can't make the Cup, go over to Chocolate. I'm sure it all gets funneled in the same place eventually. So, but help them out a little bit here. All right. Well, Sal, thank you so much just for the time for this interview. And this has just been a great interview with you, man. So I just want to thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it.
This last bit here, I just want to give to you. The floor is yours. So if you want to plug any social medias, talk about anything that's upcoming, you're more than welcome to. So have at it.
Yeah. Wow.
You weren't ready for that, were you?
I didn't think about that. No, I think just coming to the shops, we always enjoy meeting new people, and like telling you about the city and telling them where to go. So, you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram or what have you. If not, that's totally cool too. We're just happy to kind of meet people and be a part of the community. So, yeah.
And if you are on their social media, you can definitely feel like you're in the shop, because they write paragraphs upon paragraphs to make sure you get the same experience. So yeah. It's great stuff. But yeah. Awesome. Well, Sal, thank you again, and we look forward to talking to you again here maybe down the road.
Cool. Thank you.
All right, and that's it for our interview with Sal Sanchez from A Cup of Commonwealth. I want to thank Sal again for just a wonderful interview. And I want to thank all of you guys for listening to our 4th episode here at Friends in the Corner. We hope you continue to listen to future episodes of Friends in the Corner. Remember, you can find us on Friends in the Corner on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at FITC Podcast. You can also email the show at friendsinthecorner@gmail.com. That's Friends in the Corner, all together lowercase, at gmail.com. Also, like I mentioned earlier, guys, be sure to go and check out A Cup of Commonwealth and Chocolate Holler if you're in the Lexington area. A Cup of Commonwealth is at 105 East Avenue across from Thoroughbred Park. Chocolate Holler is at 400 Old Vine Street next to Walker's. Go check them out. Give them a high five and tell them Dan Polly sent you. And that is a wrap.